What's up, everybody? How are you? And welcome to a Wednesday edition of Rocket Live. Sorry we didn't go live on Tuesday. That is my fault. Wasn't able to go live yesterday, but the show will go on, and all we did was move it to the very next day, which is today, Wednesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. As Mike said, I was way too busy watching Star Wars yesterday.
It's a holiday for you.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second, I got a show. Now I got to watch Empire Strikes Back for the 1 billionth time. There's no way I can do a show on.
Mike can wait. Mike can wait. So Mike got pushed. No, yeah,
but no, man, I appreciate you being flexible with me, and I'm really happy to have you on the show. Mike is the coolest guy in title insurance. And I am so happy to have him on the show. Mike's got a great story, and I'm really happy to have him on so we can have a chat and talk all about what he's up to, what he's doing, and share it with everybody here. I want to thank everybody for watching live with us right now, and thank you for everybody who will be watching a replay of this later on, as well as the audio version when it is released on the podcast. You can, of course, watch the replay of this right here on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and also over at the Rocket Growth Agency YouTube channel, where you can see all of the video interviews that I've done with everybody going all the way back to September, August last year. I mean, I was actually on it recently, and I was like, holy cow, I can't believe how many interviews. It's nuts when you just scroll and you just see thumbnail. Yeah. I'm like, wow, I've done a lot of interviews. I never really looked at it like that. So yeah. There's a great collection of all the different folks I've interviewed over the last bunch of months, and they're all over there on the YouTube channel. Plus, you can also subscribe to the audio version of this. It's Rocket Growth Agency podcast, and it's available wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also hear a lot of the interviews there as well that I've done if you prefer an audio version over a video version. So, with all that out of the way, let's talk to our guest today, Mr. Mike Hamm. Man, welcome to the show. I really am happy to have you here. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
I've been waiting to get on Rocket Live for I don't know how long. Because the first time I had to cancel, that was my bad. There's some life stuff going on. Then you know, I mean, I know the May the 4th thing is important, so you got to take care of what you got to take care of. But I will. Can I just say, as a fellow podcaster, the intro waiting music that I was just listening to got me so jacked up for this interview. It's insane. I am ready to go. I could run through this potentially fake brick wall right behind me. That's how excited I am for this episode.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, you know what? It's hey man, it's Rocket Live. We got to have some rockin' music while everybody's waiting to watch the show. And yeah, and it's cool. So us on the other side, we get to hear it too. So it gets me
yeah, I'm I was hopefully I'm not on camera.
I love it. Love getting psyched up. Yeah. No, this is great. So listen, let's start at the beginning, man. And I want to send an actual shout out right now to Monica Dema if she's listening or not. The reason why I'm shouting out Monica Dema, who Mike and I both know well, is the reason why is because Monica invited me to the networking group that Mike is a part of, that Greg Markowitz he has. It's called Beers and Referrals. And so I want to also shout out to Greg too for running that group. But I wouldn't have gone to that group had Monica not put out a post saying, hey, we're looking for people to come to this group. And that was the first in-person networking thing I had done, which was going back now, I think right at the end of the summer when I went. We were meeting outside, and that's where I met Mike Hamm. So
that's right.
Look at that, man. We came together. So thank you, Monica, for inviting me to that wonderful group. And I've met so many cool people, and Mike being one of the great new people that I'm happy to have in my life now.
One of the coolest, if not the coolest. I mean, I'm not going to try to say I am, but maybe. But maybe
you're on the list.
I am definitely on the list. That is one of the definitely.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, I want to get into your background though. So, one of the things that I just did right away, what stands out is I know that you are, you're a podcaster, and that's exactly how I sort of when I first met you, it's hey, I got a podcast, and but I'm in title, and I didn't. At the time, I didn't put the two together. I thought the podcast was very separate from the title.
Yep.
But it's not the case. And so that's why I go, oh my God, Mike is genius, because he's really like, this is like, to me, the definition of personal branding. Like, you have 100% taken something you love doing and blended it what you do for a living and then made it now synonymous. And so it's like, I can't not think of Mike Ham without thinking of Morning Spotlight, which also means that I can't not think that then you're part of, Fidelity Title. So it's all one and the same. And you've just done a really great job blending it all together. And that to me is like 100%, like, you're a walking example of like personal branding, like, done right.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It definitely took a while.
Oh, it never happens overnight, right?
Right. What you see on your screen right now is not what happened. Like, this did not happen overnight, but it definitely has been an evolution for sure. And figuring out like who, I think it really comes down to, well, you got to figure out who you actually are first, and then being able to put that. It's all about like who you are and how often you show up as that one particular person. You know what I mean? So like, Absolutely. I said this on other podcasts before. I used to have, I think, work Mike, relationship Mike, friend Mike, family Mike, Mike when he's just in his sweatpants watching TV, on the couch. And that was just exhausting trying to juggle. It felt like I couldn't feel the starting five for the Knicks, but I really needed to just put them all together, because you can spend so much time trying to, be the best, version of what the prototypical title salesperson may look like, or what the best podcaster may look like, or whatever. Right. But it's exhausting. I mean, like, this is kind of what you do, right? So you're trying to get people to get connected with who they are as people. And once I was able to do that and really kind of figure out, okay, this is me, and I'm just going to lay it out there. And if people like it, awesome. If they don't, that's okay, because your message is never going to resonate with 100% of the people. But the more authentic you are and the more real you are, people recognize that. And the people that do like your message and do like who you are and what you're all about, that builds that trust even more. So I appreciate that, because that's I do also like the fact that you said that the Mike Ham Morning Spotlight title insurance, because that is what I've been trying to do, particularly over the last several months. Just trying to make sure that message is very clear. And we might not always do real estate, but you always think of those three things right in a row.
Right. And I think that's to me is the real goal of personal branding. It's like, what do you thought about? How do people think about you when you're not in a room? Really is what is like a true testament to personal branding. And the fact that you are, you're podcasting, you've got the whole Spotlight Social, which in itself is its own brand, but it also encompasses the things you do professionally. And it's like, if I'm thinking of that, well, then I'm thinking of you. So when it comes up to like thinking about title insurance, like, I'm going to think of Mike Ham, because that's because of those relations, So, while I was introduced to you more through podcasting, but by getting introduced to you through podcasting, it forced me to then, engage with you and then go deeper and like, oh, cool. Mike's got a podcast. He does title. And it's real estate focused, but he brings in other really cool people who have great perspectives on mindset and business and life and culture. And it's just a great blend of that. And I think that that's just something to be learned from, as to like when people go, well, you can't do this and you can't do that. And it's like, nope, you absolutely can. And
right.
Yes. And it does.
Who says you can't? Right. Like who's making these rules that says that I can't do XYZ or present myself in a certain way, like, it's just one of those things where, I mean, obviously, if I'm going to go to a business meeting, which we don't really do a ton of those right now, like, maybe I don't dress exactly like this with shorts on, but you're going to get a very similar version of what you're going to get either on the podcast or, in these types of situations, or at a networking event, or just, when I'm around other people. And I think that, like, when you're talking about having those other guests on, really rounding out, kind of everything else that goes on and, what I'm interested in. So we've had, like you mentioned, just really cool people on the show. And I wouldn't be the coolest guy in title insurance if I did not talk to other cool people. And not that real estate's not cool. I mean, if you go back through that real estate group, there's some cool people in there that have done some really awesome things.
No, absolutely, for sure.
But then you supplement that with a bunch of other cool people that do a lot of other things. And next thing you know, you got this, and here I am.
Yeah. And there you are. And what I think is cool too, is that, what we're going to talk about this now is, your evolution into this and where it's at now, because I think it's often like for people, it's like, oh my God, like I would like the podcast. It's such a heavy lift. I don't even know how to get into it. Oh, Mike, look at Mike. He's got all this stuff. And it's like, and the truth is like, It's actually not a heavy lift. You just got to start doing it. And as I just gave this presentation a little bit ago, I'm not spending thousands of dollars on equipment. Now, you can go down that route. It's something you could do,
Yeah.
but you don't have to start doing this. Like, if you want to create a podcast and build your own podcast brand, but center it around what you do for a living or your industry, like, there is zero things stopping you from doing it. And the technology barrier is not really a reason why that you shouldn't do it, because the technology barrier to get started is so minimal.
Oh, preach, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, spoiler alert, Chris Vaglio on the Morning Spotlight next Thursday, whatever that date is. But I think we talked about that, right? Because I think we both started our shows, so to speak, the same way.
Yeah.
I started mine in May of last year, the Morning Spotlight in May of last year, because I, in March, started doing virtual networking events, because my whole job as a title rep is to take people to lunch, go out to events, just be in front of people all the time. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen. So I started running virtual networking events every week on Remo, which is a virtual networking platform. Started doing those, got really good traction with those. Did them for, I think, 13 straight weeks, and was doing really well with the attendance. 40 to 50 people, 35 to 50 people every week. Thought to myself, people have told me that you get more engagement on LinkedIn if you're putting up videos. So I was like, well, I have all these people in my little sphere of influence here. What if I took them and I interviewed them for 5 minutes, posted it on my LinkedIn page? We called it the Morning Spotlight because we would post it at 9 a.m. So in the morning, we would spotlight someone. And we did a Monday through Friday, every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m., a video would go up. And I figured I would last a couple weeks. COVID would be over. I'd run out of people. Spoiler alert, COVID's not over. And here we are. But the show itself has obviously evolved quite a bit, because I did that original show for 12 straight weeks, doing 5 episodes a week. So 60 total episodes, which you as a podcaster know, that's a lot. Yeah. And especially when you're like me, head chef and chief bottle washer, where I was recording them, I was scheduling them, recording them, editing them, sending them to the guest, sometimes having to re-record them and then re-edit them, actually in a lot of cases, and then post them and make sure that I had that, I didn't miss a day. And eventually that just got to be a lot. And I wanted to actually have more engaging conversations, because here we are now, two pros, just talking. We're just having a conversation, and hopefully it's entertaining for the people that are listening. But when I first started the show, I had no idea what to do as a podcaster. So I had my Mac, which I still use to edit. I got it in like 2012, and it's a beast, and it's still ticking. And I would plug my little these Apple headphones in, and that's how I did my podcast. It was only on LinkedIn. It was just a LinkedIn video series, and then eventually upgraded, and I got this $70 mic, and I got this crappy little camera and the ring light, and now I'm a pro. So it's definitely been an evolution. But I mean, it wasn't something that stopped me. But what I did notice, and I'm curious if you saw the same thing, the reception to it, because I didn't think that I would really get a lot of people interested. Like, I asked 10 people right out of the gate, like the 10 people that were coming to my events religiously, and they're my first 10 episodes. They all said yes, and they all were my first, my first 2 weeks was that group of people. And I think that I was like, wow, that's actually really kind of interesting. I didn't think that was going to happen. Then I asked another 10 for the next 2 weeks. They all said yes. Another 10. They all said yes. And next thing I know, I have people reaching out to me from various industries, various, spots, the depths of LinkedIn, coming out to ask me if they could be on the Morning Spotlight. And I was like, sure. So all of a sudden now I've taken this thing where I'm basically just letting these people talk to my audience. Back then it was 5 minutes. And my network is growing faster than it would have if I was going to in-person events every day. You know what I mean? So there's a cap, I think, on the in-person events, because you have to engage in a conversation, maybe exchange business cards, whatever. Here, it's like you jump on a call for 5 minutes and you're just like, okay, I met that person. You jump on another call, jump on another call. You don't have to get stuck in traffic, drive into a virtual call. So the virtual world has been a big bump, I think, in the total networking for a lot of people, not just myself. I agree. And you. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think as burnt out as people are feeling and all that. And believe me, I feel as well. It's like, I can only keep sitting in front of Zoom for so long. And now I'm starting to feel like, hey, I'm getting back to like now what I feel like will be the future, which is this mix of virtual and then meeting some people in person and back on virtual again, which I feel like is a really good mix, because if anything, what virtual's done, even for creators like us, is that we're able to then say, hey, let's create a show as a way for us to then, promote ourselves, keep ourselves top of mind in our network, but then also help other people in our network, which is, yes, we do share that similar story, because that's how I started doing Rocket Live. It used to be called My LinkedIn Friends. I would interview people, do like up to 10 minutes, because all you could do is up to 10 minutes of video. It's all they would allow you to upload onto LinkedIn.
Right.
And I was just doing that. And yeah, I asked people, and then everybody started saying yes. And I was doing this, and it was cool. And exactly, I was like, well, I'll do this for a little bit. It'll fizzle out. It's fine. I'll help people. Yeah. The pandemic, because at that time we were all like, oh, it'll be 2 weeks, a month. Like no one that,
right.
we early on, we didn't realize it was going to like, okay. Then reality set in.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Like, wait a second. Strap in, everybody.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah. And then it turned in, then I got approved. Then I was like, well, I'll approve for LinkedIn Live. And I got approved. And then before I knew it, I got approved for that. And I was like, wow, now I could do the show to a wider audience. I could start streaming live. I can make a longer thing. And that's how then it became Rocket Live. And that's what I've been doing since the end of the summer, which is when I go through the YouTube, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my God, there's so many interviews, like amazing. Like I can't believe how many I've done. And you have a lot of the same thing, because it's like, you've done so many like interviews from like, and even though, once again, it's like the real estate industry's been a focus. Not everybody you interview is like specifically from the real estate industry, but yet they have the things they talk about are like business related, or very much mindset related, or their creativity involved in it.
Right. You could take lessons from any one of the people that I've had on the show. And it's just so funny, because like I was just on my YouTube page today, and so 60 episodes of the old show. And now yesterday posted my 68th, tomorrow 69th episode of the new iteration of the show. So 129 episodes since May of last year, which is kind of crazy. But, like you talk about those, those other episodes. And I think that, if you have, I've had 2 Olympic athletes on the show, Devin Harris and Priscilla Frederick Loomis. Both, Devin Harris was a part of the first ever Jamaican bobsled team. Priscilla is a high jumper. She competes for Antigua and Barbuda. She actually lives down in Wildwood, and just reached out. But you talk to those people and you like learn what people are doing that are competing at like the highest level of something. And I think as a business person, if I'm selling title insurance or hot dogs or whatever, I feel like when you have that mindset that you want to be the best version of yourself. So like, what is that going to take? You have to, for them, eat the right stuff, make sure you're working out, training, like the sleep schedules, the doctors, the chiropractors, the massage therapists. You got to Priscilla pays for her own flights to get to Tokyo this year. You know what I mean? So stuff like that, you have to figure out ways to make it happen, and like what ways that you're going to achieve success. And I think that that's just something that if you're, I know my demographics of my audience is probably between the ages of 25 and 35 as the majority of my listeners. If you look at a group like that, that means they're probably entrepreneurs or new to real estate investing or just earlier in their career, which means that they're still trying to figure some stuff out. Like we all may think we have it figured out, but we don't. And anybody that says that they do is lying. But you listen to somebody like that, tell that story and tell like all the stuff that she does to just be able to afford to go to the Olympic Games to compete is just, it's insane. And then obviously like from an educational standpoint on the real estate side, every Tuesday, that's what we do. We have somebody on that, can either take us to school on a particular topic. It's 1020 or 1031s if they still exist after, these next tax things happen. If it's 1031s, if it's multifamily investing, if it's, the future of the office buildings and stuff like that. Right. And I think that that's something where, all of a sudden now you have like these two things that you could just get so much value from. And for me, it just makes me better as a communicator, I would hope. Yeah. And then has helped me grow that network. And, if there's anybody in sales that's listening, it's one of those things for me, at least, that you never know where that next deal is going to come from. You don't know like who's going to be saying to themselves, I have to buy a house. Oh, I remember Mike sells title insurance. Why don't I give him a call, or have my attorney give him a call, or have my realtor give him a call? Something like that. You never know when it's going to happen. So the more you put out, the more good and the more stuff you put out there, the less of a chance people have of escaping you. And that's my biggest thing. Like taking my face and putting it in their face as much as possible, even if they may not like it. But then hopefully I'm always top of mind.
Right. And the way you do it too, which is the way, I talk about it. And I know you talk about it with people, is like, exactly, like you're putting stuff out there all the time. I'm always putting stuff out there all the time. And the thing is what we're both doing, and what anybody should be doing when they're creating content and really working on these things is it should be of value. It should be aligned with who you are, what you're about, what you're doing. And you should be providing value to people, like constantly sharing and serving, because that's exactly what happens is you're doing it. Value. Someone's learning. Oh, this is interesting. Mike's doing it. Mike's providing this value. And then boom, something comes up. And then, hey, yes, I would like, title insurance, Mike Cam, I'll call him, have my attorney call him, whatever. Because you're providing value, there's like no selling involved in this, other than just playing the top of mind game. But it's not even just putting out stuff for stuff's sake. Like it's providing valuable content that people find relevant, interesting, and especially when you think about your audience, like that's what you're doing. I'm serving you content that's valuable to you.
Right. And you, I would love to get your thoughts on this too, but I had a guest on my show, Yona Weiss, shout out Yona if he's listening. And he said something that I thought was very interesting, and something that I have been doing, but didn't realize that I had been doing. So he's a cost segregation expert. Mm-hmm. And I like to consider myself a title insurance expert, whatever that may mean. The stuff that I put out is not always title insurance. It's actually very rarely title insurance. But to go back to one of the things you were saying at the very beginning of the episode, excuse me, is that the stuff that I'm putting out, the more I just say, Mike Ham, coolest guy in title insurance, morning spotlight. It's like, you ever watch Seinfeld, like the Costanza? It's like that. You just like the jingle in your head. You're like, Mike Ham, morning spotlight, title insurance. Mike Ham, morning spotlight, title insurance. And next thing you know, you just like can't shake me. So I don't necessarily think that the content itself, when I agree, it has to be value. It just can't be like, hey, I'm eating breakfast this morning. See you guys. It just has to be something like you're giving value to someone. And then it doesn't necessarily have to be the specific thing that you do. It just has to be that you're putting yourself out there as much as possible. It's still giving value, but in a lot of different ways, but always filtering it back to your core message, right?
Exactly. It's like, it should always just be about like, for me, it checks the boxes, right? It doesn't like, everything I put out is personal branding focused. Like some things I put out, like if people who just follow my personal Instagram page get like a mishmash of like personal branding stuff, Star Wars, punk and metal, what I'm listening to right now, which, rock thing, or the other projects I'm involved in, like my Galaxy Geeks podcast, or the thing I'm doing with Amanda, the Chris and Amanda show, or hey, I'm using Clubhouse, or like you are just getting like the things that are sort of going on, like that I'm using and liking, but it all checks boxes for me because it all aligns with who I am, what I like, what I do, my core values as a person. Yeah. That's what I put out. And if it hits all those boxes, then that's what goes out, and if you follow Rocket Growth Agency's channel, you're going to see it's going to be a little bit more, but it'll be more focused on the personal branding side of things, or, things that I coach on. But the two will bleed back and forth, sure. But it doesn't have to be all just, like I say this, and see, you're great because you're in title, right? And title is traditionally very much people think about like a title equals boring equals like whatever, and it's like that's the perception. Right. but you've made it. But to your credit, see, this is what I talk about all the time, is to your credit, you've taken something that most people perceive as boring and turned it into cool. The way you do it, because it's coming from you, so you've packaged it in a way that works, and you could provide this value and content. And I say this all the time, like people will be like, "Oh my god, accountant CPAs, like whatever, like we have to do our taxes, and that's kind of it." other than that, like, like what else more do they do?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, actually, if you really start talking to some different CPAs and accountants, and this is where they find their value, is like maybe what they do is entertainment focused. Well, hey, that's really cool. That's interesting. Or, them as a person are into like all these other things, these other aspects of what it is they do. And now when you begin to blend what you do for a living with the things that you like, now you get something that's like, wow, that's interesting. It's valuable. Like now people remember you and they want to engage with you. They want to connect with you. They want to be around you because now you're a go-to person that is got all these different ways to like connect with them because they're sharing all these parts about themselves. Like, oh, I didn't know you like chess, or that you were an awesome gardener, or like French pastries is like something you got really into. Like, but it's like, like I build RC cars. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, I like, tell me about that. That's really interesting.
Right.
And then before you know, and if you ever need an accountant or whatever, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the stuff and see, that's what you're doing. That's why I keep saying that I find you to be an amazing example of like what it means to personal brand, and especially take something that's not sexy,
right?
Like title
insurance.
Right.
Title
There's
insurance,
nothing sexy about it, but you've made it sexy.
Yeah. In the real estate world, title insurance may be, I don't know. Because I don't know all the, all the aspects of the real estate industry, but it may be the most boring section of the real estate industry, but it's an integral part in that process. So, instead of me just going to lunches or having these Zoom meetings or getting on a podcast and being like, well, the title premium on a $150,000 refinance is going to be this because of this and blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, thanks, Amanda. So, like stuff like that is just like why are we going to do that? And to your point, taking in like all these other things and just putting out my real self, because, there's always going to be people that want to keep their personal life and their business life separate, which I get. Right. But you're able to connect, at least I think, more. It's the know, like, and trust thing. People say that all the time, so it's a little worn out, but it's so true. They get to know you and like you and trust you when they actually know you, not just what you can do for them when it comes to, selling title insurance or being a CPA or being a personal branding coach, but like what makes you tick? What can we find some common ground? Right. And I think that that's something that, even subconsciously, and I think that thank you for noticing that I've just been doing it. Like I've taken all the stuff that I like, and put that onto my show too, and made that part of my whole vibe and my persona and, everything, because that's just me, and it's like one of those things again, where like, it's impossible to appease everybody. So the more, you're able to be yourself. And I almost think the more specific and you're able to make yourself, rather than trying to be broad, the more specific you are with who you are, I think that actually attracts more people, because I think that just makes you more real, because people's BS meters are so, like finely tuned these days that they can sniff that stuff out. No problem. You know what I mean? But like now, you just have to be your best version of yourself and then just let it ride and see what happens.
Yeah, well said. I mean, absolutely. I 100% well said on that. And I think that to me is like when everybody goes, yeah, what's the secret of personal branding, or, how do you do it? And it's like, listen, what I do is I can provide you the guidance, but you have to really do the work. You got to do the foundational work. And you said it at the start when I was talking about this. None of this happened overnight. Like you didn't become the coolest guy in title insurance overnight. Like the evolution of your show, where it is right now to where it started, didn't happen overnight. Like not like even this, like, what I do is like, it didn't start overnight. Like I had a lot of, time. I've been putting in time, but it's taken a lot of time to get it to this. And I'm not done, and you're not done. You're still growing. You're still, every time I do another interview, I get better. Every time you do another interview, you get better. And, we make some small tech upgrades here and there. And that's the thing. And it's the same thing with personal branding. Like, these parts of yourself are there, but it takes a while to build on them, lean into them, feel more confident about it, learn how to like use it in the right settings, things like that. And it's just, that takes time to do it, but you can't skip over any of it. There's no skipping.
But I do think that, and I'm just going to say this because I feel comfortable in my own skin, and I look at you as someone who I feel like is comfortable in their own skin. I feel like people that are still on that search, on that quest, and I was in this boat too, look at people maybe like us and be like, well, there's no way I'm ever going to get to that. You know what I mean? Because they see like not a finished product, because I don't think anybody is ever a finished product, but someone that's maybe really committed to that process and further along down the line. And I think that that's what something, maybe from a personal branding standpoint, or just being, like that search for the authentic self is sometimes a daunting task for people, because, they're constantly trying to, I don't know, figure out what it is that they need to do to get to all the way to where we are, or all the way to even somebody that's, even further along than us, where you got to take that. It's, how do you eat an elephant? You just got to start with the first bite, not, the whole elephant, because that's impossible, but the first bite. So the more you're able to just work on that every day. And I said that at the beginning, like how often you show up and how you show up is very important. The more you do it, the easier it gets. It's like with anything. The more you do something, the better you get at it. That's like, that's common knowledge, I think. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. I mean, I'll say I wasn't always confident in my own skin for sure. I mean, it's definitely been an evolution of years of working on it and getting to a point. And even up until recently, starting this new company and leaning into a lot more, like going a little bit more hardcore into like the parts of myself that like, I already kind of knew about and I put them out there, but I wore a lot of things on my sleeve, but like with this, I mean, I basically named my company Rock It Growth Agency on purpose, like because I wanted to send a message, and I also wanted to it was a way of like this brand I created is holding myself accountable to make sure that I am bringing myself every single day and not shying away from the things that I'm talking about people doing. And so it was designed that way specifically to hold myself accountable. So I'm like, you know what? I'm never going to forget to like not to lean into the things that I know that are good qualities about yourself, or the things that I really love to do. That's why I just went there with this. I just was like, I'm just going full court press into this stuff now. It didn't happen overnight, man. It really did not.
Right. And it's not like just because you have it figured out now, at least this is my thing, that it's now just like every day you wake up and you're Chris Faglio.
Yeah.
I don't wake up every morning thinking I'm Mike Hamm. I'm like the best thing ever. You know what I mean? Like it's sometimes you have a crappy day, right? And absolutely. I think that's just one of those things where it's like a river, like some days you're over here, some days you're over here. But it's just one of those things where the more you show up at like 100% of whatever you're able to that day, the easier it is to start to build that brand, build that self-awareness. And then, eventually get to where you feel very comfortable getting on camera and having these kinds of conversations, or putting out content, or just being the best, whatever, I don't know, like title salesperson you could be. So,
Yeah. And so how long have you been involved in title?
It'll be 4 years in August. So, before that, I was a college baseball coach. So graduated from TCNJ 2012. Trenton State for my older New Jersey listeners, and played college baseball, got a job as a pitching coach at TCNJ after I graduated, then went to Franklin Marshall College in Pennsylvania, coached there for a year, St. John Fisher College up in Rochester, New York, coached there for 2.5 years. I was a grad assistant, so I got an MBA and paid to coach, which was great. And then eventually wanted to try to use the new degree, wanted to, maybe even keep the baseball part of it alive. So I moved back home, got a job at an indoor sports facility in the Lake Apacon area. Was not a great fit for a variety of reasons. I was there for 8 months, worked my tail off, and then was miserable. My dad's actually worked in title insurance for about 35 years. And he's an attorney, so he's, knows the industry very well. And he was like, I know Fidelity may need some sales reps. There was some people that were retiring, some people that were coming up for retirement, so they kind of needed a backfill. And he's like, what about that? And I knew that he had worked in title insurance, but had really no idea like what that actually was. Like I would ask him and he would explain it to me, and then I'd be asleep halfway through, what he was actually explaining. No, I'm just kidding. But I really didn't know. It wasn't until I actually sat for my insurance producer's exam where I was just, saying to myself, oh, this is what he does. And then, started in August of 2017, I guess. And here we are now, almost 4 years later. At the beginning, it was definitely a learning curve because it is a complete 180 from the lifestyle that I was used to living prior to that. And, I think that was just something that eventually over time, I just got more comfortable with it. Again, the more I did it, the more meetings I took, the more clients I got or potential clients to bring into the fold and grow my book. That was really important to, get to where I am today. And again, not done, obviously, because it's still new. And last year was just what it was. And you basically lost almost an entire year to, COVID, and real estate obviously slowed down quite a bit. But yeah, now here we are almost 4 years later.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that because there's so much going on there, because I love that you started as a baseball coach. I thought that was cool. I actually never realized that. So that's really neat.
Yeah.
And so you played baseball your whole life, like the whole little league and all the way up through high school. And...
Oh yeah, that was like really one of the only things that I was good at as far as sports went. Like I could throw a baseball, and that's played my whole life. Played in high school. Went to college. I actually started at Franklin and Marshall my first 2 years, and then transferred to TCNJ. But then went to TCNJ, finished out my career there, and then eventually got the job as a pitching coach. So. It was always something that was very near and dear to my heart, and something that for a while was just like Mike Hamm does baseball. It's like Morning Spotlight, Title Insurance, same jingle. It's like Mike Hamm baseball, Mike Hamm baseball. So, eventually it was kind of jarring, I think, to get out of that and start doing something else, because I felt like there was like that piece missing, even though now I don't really do anything with baseball aside from like watch a Yankee game every now and then. And I feel like great. This is like probably the best I've felt maybe my whole life, just because I'm just putting it all out there. Like, this is me, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really great, man. It's cool to hear that, like how you made that career shift too, like that transition from, basically, I mean, you were a baseball coach, pitching coach, to then, getting involved in title and real estate and all that. And so now you've been 4 years with one company. Is that where?
Correct.
This is Fidelity.
Yep. Yeah. So started with Fidelity, which is the nation's largest collection of title insurance underwriters in the country. So we are the largest direct operation underwriter in the country. So we own the brand Chicago Title, Commonwealth Title, obviously Fidelity. There's a couple more brands that we own out in like West Coast, Texas. There's a couple others, but here in New Jersey, Commonwealth, Fidelity, and Chicago are the three big ones that we own. So that was, that is also the other thing that I think was important for me, because I think at the beginning when I first started, I was leaning heavily on like just the brand recognition, right? So you had the brand recognition of Fidelity, where I could walk into a bigger law firm and say, walk up to a real estate attorney and be like, "Hey, I'm Mike, I'm from Fidelity." And they're like, "Oh, okay, Fidelity," or, "Oh, Chicago, great." Now all of a sudden you have this, strong corporate presence with this built-in personal brand that I've established over the last year or so. And now all of a sudden I'm hopeful, at least if it all goes according to plan, I'm going to crush it. But now I'm hopeful that those two things kind of together presents me as a very different and a very appealing, I would hope, option in the title insurance world, because I don't really see anybody else that does what I do doing what I do. So I don't see a lot of other title reps doing podcasts, doing, guesting on shows, doing the types of stuff that I'm doing, the content and different things, the people that I talk to, or if they are, they're just not beating the drum as loudly as I am. And I think that that's really important. And I think that, now having like that, strong, like I said, strong corporate presence, plus, we have 5 offices here in New Jersey, people that have been doing this for a very long time. Plus my personal brand and my personality, and just me being a sales rep here in New Jersey for them. I think that that's just kind of like a perfect storm with all these, cool things to kind of stick together.
Yeah, I 100% agree. You know, and it's like, and I know doing the things like that we do, like podcasts and creating all the things we do, and even, you know, and we'll talk about this in a second too, like getting involved in Clubhouse, things like that. It's like I I'm not gonna say that what we do is easy, because it's not. Like all this stuff that you see, like it takes work to do the show, and I probably do the most minimum amount of work you could probably do to just kind of create the show. Because it does take a lot of time, and you can find yourself getting sucked into a rabbit hole of this, and before you know it, like your whole world is just about like creating just this one thing. And like, well, no, I actually have like a job, like I got, you know, I'm trying to run a business.
I have to pay bills. Yeah, right. Yeah, I got to pay my rent. You know?
Exactly. But then at the same time, like this stuff that we do, like podcast, I'll just use this as one example. So podcasting is like, it helps to create so many opportunities in what it is that you want to do, because it really enables you to open a door to share what you know, share what you're knowledgeable about, and meet other people. And that's the thing with this world, like podcasting, and even like being a guest, things like that, is like, if I was in sales, which I am in sales because I own an own company, you're in sales, like we're in sales, but like, I don't know why not every single person who's in sales isn't doing some form of this all the time, because it's an amazing way to reach and get in front of people and be an expert even in your network. Just if your network is 50 people, then great, then become the expert in that area with the network of 50 people, and like do something like this where you're providing a hub of information, like, you know. And once again, I'm not saying it's just easy, but it kind of is, because you could literally just create podcasts with this like this device, the phone, you know, like you could just do that and start with nothing.
Yeah, and I think that, like, no matter what it is, because I do think that, like, doing a podcast, and I think, you know, you hear a lot of people that do them, and there's a lot of good ones out there, obviously, and there's a lot of bad ones. But I do think that something, anything, put anything out there. If you've gone for this, you know, since, you know, here in New Jersey, March of last year, it's May 5th today. If you've gone this long without trying to establish some type of social presence or virtual presence, you're missing the boat. And maybe the boat's already left the harbor, because last year was the time to do it. Because my greatest fear was that, and I'm sure yours was as well, starting a new business.
Yeah.
My greatest fear was I got back to an in-person event, whenever those happen again, not put anything out and just send emails and whatever, and then go to an event and somebody says, "Oh, Mike, I didn't even realize you were still selling title insurance." That's literally my greatest fear of all time. So how do you combat that? You just put stuff out, and you put your face on LinkedIn, you put your face on Instagram, you put your voice on Clubhouse, you put whatever you can out there in an attempt to keep your, you know, top of mind, like we said before, for everybody. And I think, like you said, I mean, there's the barrier to entry with a lot of these things. It's like doesn't even exist. There is no barrier to entry. It's free. You can get on Anchor or whatever and start a podcast with your iPhone, your headphones, and Anchor app. Like, that's all you need. You know what I mean? And is it going to be the best quality ever? No, but it's putting something out there. And I think that's what people get hung up on, is like that. What's that, like shiny ball syndrome, or is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like the shiny new thing. Like, and I've got to, and listen, I respect you wanting to put out things that sound and look good. Like, I'll never, I mean, I came from video for 20 years. Like, that was what I specialized in, was making things look as awesome as they can. But there's a time and a place, though, to, like, if it's what's keeping you from doing all the things you just said, then you're in big trouble, because you got to say, listen, you got to get over it and say, let me just get going, and I will get better. I will naturally get better.
Yeah. I mean, just look at, sometimes I like looking at those old YouTube videos, because I've uploaded all of them onto my YouTube page.
Me too.
So every now and then I'll go back to like the first couple. And, you know, my first ever interview was with my buddy Darren Griffith. And I watched that interview, cringeworthy, because it's like the two of us basically just like reading off the screen. at each other. So electric content, obviously. But now, and it's just like, again, it's the more you do it, the better you get at it, the more comfortable you get at it, the better guests you start to have on. Not that, I mean, Darren was a great guest, but that was a great one to have right out of the gate. But you just start to expand your scope more and more the more that you do it. Even if you're going to have guests, if you want to do a solo show, that's even better too. But yeah, man, I mean, I 100% agree. And I feel like people that aren't doing that stuff and haven't at least attempted to try to put stuff out there and get themselves out there in a virtual way, because, I'll wait for the in-person. I'll wait for the in-person. It's going to be tough sledding, at least in my opinion, when you do get back, because I'm coming back too. And so are you. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like now all of a sudden you have me who has that virtual presence and is now back at that in-person event. You have none, and they've forgotten about you. And now you're trying to, compete, for lack of a better word, against me. Yeah. So that's kind of where it all kind of weaves together for me.
Absolutely. No, it's well said. I mean, listen, if there is a strategy and a method to the madness. And I know for some people, I hear it's like, oh my God, Chris, I open up my phone, I see you there. I flip, I go to Facebook, you're there. I see LinkedIn, you're there. I Clubhouse, I see you come up. And it's like, I agree. I have the same tactic. It's like, listen, I want to be in all these places because my biggest fear is that, yes, people forget about me. I become irrelevant. And then therefore, like, I'm not thought of in conversation. I'm not thought of when somebody goes, oh, hey, I need help with this or that. And then I just want my name to be top of mind and say, oh, you should go speak to Chris. I think he can help one way or the other. Even if it's just like, even if it has nothing to do with personal branding, like, I love when people just come to me and go, hey, do you know anybody who does this, this, and this? Because chances are I do, and I know they're quality people. So, like, I want the opportunity to help you with that. And so if I'm not doing these things, I'm not being thought of. I'm not coming up in conversations, and I can't provide value. I can't do the things I want to do.
Right.
And that's the method to the madness, man. I mean, that is it right there. And it's like, it's not really it's not an ego thing. I'm not doing it just so I can hear someone tell me, oh, you're everywhere, Chris. Like, to me, it's just like, that just means what I'm doing is working in the sense that now I'm being thought of and top of mind. I'm not just doing it because I like seeing my face. I actually went for myself personally. I'm like, oh. I can't stand looking at myself, you know, but
I'm the opposite. I just can't stop looking at my screen on here. I haven't looked at you once, honestly.
You're so enamored with your own look, and
look at that beard. Goodness.
Yeah, look at that beard. I do like the background though, man. I like the how did you build that brick wall in your house? I mean, it must have taken you a long time to, that
brick by brick, baby. Brick by brick.
Find that real weathered brick,
Yeah, right. Put it in this 1-bedroom apartment, into the multi-purpose room, I always like to say this because this is my desk. So it's a plastic folding table. This is where I work. So this is, my office, my recording studio. There's an elliptical here. So it's a gym. And then there's on the other side of this, brick wall that I built, there's my bed. So this is the multi-purpose room in the 1-bedroom apartment. So this is bed, office, recording studio, and gym all in one. So Spotlight Studios. This is where we get it done.
Spotlight Studios, baby. I love it. I love it. This was great, man. I can't even believe it. I'm like looking at the time. I'm like, holy crap. I can't believe this time's flown by because I'm like, I feel like you and I could go on and on for like another 3 hours talking about everything.
We definitely could. Yeah. You were going to ask me about Clubhouse though. I don't want to.
Oh yeah. You know what? No, it's great. I'm actually glad you brought up. Yeah. I would like to just have a quick chat about Clubhouse because, it's something you and I both got involved in. We've met. I mean, you and I have met some of the most amazing people, a lot of the same people, but you've also met some other great people that you've been collaborating with. You've got a club on Clubhouse. You've taken the morning spotlight to Spotlight Social now, right? Is that what it is on Clubhouse?
Yeah. So I had always done the podcast lunch hour. I've been doing the podcast lunch hour since January 18th. So at noon, Monday through Friday, we get on there for an hour and we talk about podcasting. So I had a co-host at the beginning, Frederick. He had to stop because he got a new job. Then I had B, and B's been great. She's been my co-host since February 4th. But now I just have like this group of people that just comes up and helps me out. And they're all great. So if I went on vacation like I did a couple weeks ago, they picked up the slack, which was awesome. And then so we do the podcast lunch hour, which is under that club. And then Bearded Brian, who hosts the Dynasty of Dads podcast, has been starting a room for the last couple of weeks on Wednesdays at 1 Eastern about building a community, building an engaged podcast community.
Right.
And, Bearded Brian is very big on TikTok. And then the podcast obviously successful as well. So it was cool. He reached out to me. It was like, hey, I love what you're doing. Could I start a room under your, banner? And I was sure, so we got 2 rooms, hopefully to start to grow that out as more people want to start doing stuff under that thing. But yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. I mean, I think so tomorrow I have Faith Williamson on the show, who I met through Clubhouse. Next week I have Pedro Maciel on Tuesday, who obviously we met through Clubhouse. Just all these people that, and I always say this, that I wish I started my show after getting on Clubhouse, because I've learned so much and the show has improved so much.
Yeah.
I still do some rinky-dink stuff. I mean, I don't have a fancy microphone, and I still use Zoom, and I know that makes some of the more experienced podcasters cringe, but I mean, I do those things. But with all the other stuff like best practices and just how to craft episodes and just listening to more shows, honestly, listening to people that actually have podcasts and seeing what they do, and then trying to, even if the topic is not the same, just trying to incorporate that into what I'm doing, just to try to, make my show a little bit better. So Clubhouse for me has just been just off the charts. I mean, it's a time suck, and I have whittled it down quite a bit to just doing, maybe a couple rooms a day, definitely 1, maybe 2 rooms a day. Excuse me. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's something that, and I've talked about it a lot. I mean, I think everybody who's been following the show for the last few months, a lot of the guests that have come on have been people, and I usually start with this, hey, so I met them on Clubhouse. We met on Clubhouse. We were and that's how a lot of my last bunch of guests have been but it's been great because that has been, for me, the whole reason why I started this was to help people tell their stories, get their stories told, people who I think are just rock stars at what they're doing and how they're helping others to become rock stars. And Clubhouse has not been a shortage of finding such amazing people out there, real genuine people who really have great stories and how they're helping and connecting others. And I'll agree, man, some of the rooms, I mean, you and I are running a lot of the same rooms, the podcasting rooms, and the amount of knowledge that gets shared and dropped in those rooms really, really helps level up, your game. My game in particular, every time I go into a room and I listen, I'm always oh, let me try this, let me try that, let me bring this to my show and all that, technique or interview or whatever, because it just helps the quality, because that's what I want to do. I want to get naturally better at it. I started it very rinky dink and ragtag, and yes, I agree. It's still not I don't have a board. I use a USB based mic. I'm not still there yet, but I'm getting there. And
when we're ready to do that, we know what to do. Now we know. Right. So when the time comes, but yeah, I mean, even just today, you were saying, I mean, in the lunch hour room today, I don't even know what some of these people were talking about. It was so outside my depth that I was just sitting there listening, taking notes. And I was messaging into, we have a little group chat with the other mods that I, usually have on that room. And I'm I'll reset it when you guys are ready to reset, because I can't really contribute to this conversation because I don't even know what you're saying. I don't even know what some of these words mean. So I'm just going to sit back, hang back, and learn. And then, as we go, but that's just the cool thing, and the other cool thing is that you just get to connect with people from all over the place. So, so you're not beholden to, you and I here in New Jersey.
Right.
We can, I mean, anywhere. I mean, people from different countries, different people from different states, different backgrounds, different walks of life. And that's one of the things that I think is really cool, because you get to meet those people and you have to get their most authentic version of themselves, because you can't hide with the way that you talk. You know what I mean? So the stuff that you talk about and the way that you talk and your messages and the stuff that you try to get people to buy, if that's what you're trying to do, people pick up on that real fast.
They do.
And there's just rooms I don't go in anymore because I know what that person brings to the table and I just don't feel like listening. But there's other people that I have the ping set to always. And anytime I see it, if I'm available, I'm in and I'm going to listen, so.
Yep. Yeah, you find your people. You find the
Yeah.
people you want to connect with, like outside of Clubhouse. It's what you would do naturally, and what Clubhouse does is just afford us all the opportunity to be able to connect with each other from anywhere in the world, make new friends, make new connections, and just find value within one another. Like, I've probably met more people from Australia in the last 6 months than I've met in my entire
Yeah.
lifetime.
I didn't even know I didn't even know people actually live down there. I just thought it was, like people would visit and then they come back,
Yeah.
But then, like you said, you're talking to people like, oh, I'm in Australia. Like, oh, okay, cool.
I know. And each one is like more like everyone's amazing. Like, they're all like, everybody's just,
they're all amazing.
And that's just one country. Like, I've met people from like in so many countries. It's just ridiculous. So it's been really great. And and like, hey, with anything, there's good and there's the bad, but I like to focus more on the positive sides of the app and what it brings. And yes, it is a time suck, but I've settled into it now. And much like you, I'm on 1-2 rooms and I'm done, and maybe at night I'll go through and see who's around and jump in for a little bit before. I mean, I don't know if you've done it yet, but I've done it quite a few times where I'm in a room and I just completely fall asleep in that room, and you wake up and the room is still going. And I'm like, geez, I hope they weren't calling my name or whatever.
Yeah,
but who cares? I mean, it's funny though. Like, there's been many times where I've opened it up and I like wake up and I'm like, oh, I was still in Clubhouse. Oh, I'm still in this room. How's this room still going?
Yeah, right. I have not done that. Usually I'm pretty good and have always been pretty good. Like, depending on the day, it's either like 5 o'clock, shut it down, 8 o'clock, shut it down. Like, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
If my girlfriend's working on a particular day, she works late. So, maybe I'll shut it down later. But yeah, so like, I've never fallen asleep in a room. I feel like that's like a bucket list thing that I need to try to do.
I've done it.
Yeah. But I also, don't want to bring it into bed and be like listening, and she's gonna be like, turn that thing off. Like, what are you?
I will say it usually happens after like, hey, I'm still awake, but my wife is like, hey, I'm gonna go to bed. Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'm still kind of awake. So I'll just sit out in the living room and I open up my phone, I put my AirPods in, and I just start listening, and then before you know it, it's like, it's a good thing, and it's a good thing I'm not on the audience or I'm not on stage, because otherwise had mics on it, just snoring.
Hear you snoring. Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, at least I'm in the audience when it happens, or at least or at least my mic is on mute.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah. Oh man, well, this was amazing. Really, I really appreciate you coming on today. This was a lot of fun, and as I said, we could probably keep going and going forever talking about all the different things about whether it's podcasting or life in general, all the different things we're into. So we'll do a part 2 to this in the future for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this is great. So man, thanks so much for coming on, and so I've been flashing it up as we go along, but once again, the podcast website, if you want to visit, go to themorningspotlight.com, and you can listen to Morning Spotlight anywhere, right? I mean, anywhere you get podcasts, right?
Yep. Anywhere podcasts are sold, you can get my podcast there. So themorningspotlight.com is the hub. So you could do all the podcast stuff right from there. You could also access a title insurance order form if you're looking to purchase title insurance right from that website. So there's a lot of stuff you can do on there, and that is the hub of me. So themorningspotlight.com.
Awesome. And I'm also gonna show this too, because you've got some schmancy merch. Liz, Morning Spotlight.
You gotta own it.
Official merch, brah.
Official merch. Yep. And this site ships in like less than 2 weeks, I think. So that's always good. But yeah, I mean, that was like the one thing that I wanted. I honestly started the store before I even had posted my first episode. Right. Because I was like, I want a t-shirt so bad. And then I just had some fun with it and got a little creative with it and started putting this stuff up there. So there you go. I appreciate the store plug. Mug's great. It's a little small, but I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is great, man. I always love to, if people have merch, I always love to share it. So, and that all of this is accessible from the website.
That's right. Everything's there. The hub.
The hub.
The MyCam hub.
The MyCam hub. And for anybody that will be listening to this, all these links will be in the show notes for sure. And if you are watching this, once again, all the links there will be in the notes, the comment section, all that great stuff. So I want to thank everybody for watching today. Thank you for watching live. Thanks for commenting as we go here. Really appreciate all of you. definitely make sure if you want to keep commenting, go right ahead. Leave the comments right here on the video post, wherever you're watching this video. Please feel free, if you're watching this on YouTube, or head over to your YouTube channel, go over to YouTube, look for Rock It Growth Agency, and feel free to hit that subscribe button so that way you get notified every single time I put a new video out and we go live. Same thing can also be said for the audio version of the podcast. Make sure you head over there, wherever you get your podcast, and hit that subscribe button so that way you can stay up to date every time I drop an audio version of the show. And with that, I want to thank Mr. Mike, the coolest guy in title, once again, for hanging out with us today on Rocket Live. Really appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for this.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you supporting the show and supporting me. And like I said before, beating the drum louder than most people do for me in the show. So thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Dude, no, absolutely. I appreciate you. And I think this was just too much fun. So this is why I love doing this. So thank you for coming. Thanks, everybody, for watching another episode of Rocket Live. And for everybody that will be listening to this, thank you guys so much for all of your support. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe this video everywhere in the universe, because it not only helps me grow the show, but it also helps my guests. Most importantly, helps my guests get their message out, and everybody else can learn about who they are, what they do, and all their awesomeness. So I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Really, really thank you. With that, as I always say, be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it.
Love it.
See you guys next Tuesday.
See ya.